Now, welcome to another lightning response video, where this time the question comes to us from author Jonah White, who said, "Don't you think you and other Ahsoka haters are being a little too extreme? To me, you all sound like the prequel haters back in the day, calling it bad writing, etc." The truth is that Star Wars originals and prequels have always had issues, but it's meant to be a magical, fun adventure. Andor didn't capture that at all, while Ahsoka did. And Ahsoka managed to blend the originals, prequels, Clone Wars, Rebels, and even the sequels in a single show, which no other show did before. Why can't people just enjoy a good Star Wars adventure when it's created for them by other Star Wars fans who genuinely care and love the franchise and want to honor George Lucas with it, unlike some of the other shows and the lifeless sequels? Okay, so first of all, can we please stop with the nonsense of calling someone a hater just because they don't love every single thing about a show and don't want to worship at the altar of the one who created it? Not everything in the real world has to be one way or the other with no room for a middle ground. Not loving everything about something doesn't mean you hate it. To be blunt, that is a rather childish way of looking at the world, at looking at things, and is quite possibly the biggest problem with the world today, that everybody feels like they have to pick a side when it comes to everything. I mean, most parents complain about their children and are driven crazy by them from time to time, and maybe often, but they still love them more than anything else on earth, because love isn't about accepting something without question. It's about accepting it despite the flaws and times it may drive you crazy. Also, being willing to criticize something because you want to see it improve and be the best it can be is not hate. We consider it bad parenting when a parent refuses to discipline an unruly child. You don't punish your kids when they make a mistake because you want to be mean or cruel. You do it because you don't want to see them make the same mistake again and again. You want them to grow into the best possible person they can be. Just like I don't sit here and criticize Star Wars because I want to be mean to it or the fans who like it. We are all fans of the same thing. We should be able to agree that it is not always perfect. I'm not being critical of Star Wars because I am just a hater who gets some sort of weird enjoyment out of it. I do it because I would like to see Star Wars be the best it can possibly be. I do it because I don't think this show, the Ahsoka series, was as good as it could have and should have been. And just saying that because its aim is to be a fun, magical adventure, that shouldn't excuse a lack of quality. Just because your intent is to be something more frivolous and fun doesn't mean it can't also be exceptional. Just a look at the live-action version of One Piece that came out on Netflix recently. And for the record, I've never seen the anime and know little to nothing about it or knew nothing about it going into it. And so for all I know, it's not a very true or accurate representation of the original, and if that's your complaint about it, that's fine. But anyway, that was a show that in some respects is very much meant to be a fun, damn near silly adventure. The main character is made of rubber, for crying out loud, and there's a decapitated talking clown pirate head in there. At face value, pretty much everything about it is ridiculous. Even the premise, a kid wanting to be the king of the pirates, is pretty flimsy, again, at face value. But that didn't mean it didn't take itself seriously and deliver an excellent, very well-written story that had some very, very interesting and developed characters despite, again, that kind of ridiculous premise. I dare say Star Wars could learn a thing or two about the way that show approached and handled things. That it, was kind of fantastical and wacky at times, but it still managed to stay grounded. It managed to balance the two nearly perfectly, and despite being all but positive none of the main characters were going to die in it, I was pretty sure everyone was living through it. It still had stakes, and there was still tension. Which, in my book, was the biggest problem with the Ahsoka series overall. I never felt any sense of urgency or like characters even cared about what was happening beyond the plot saying they should care about it. And when it had the chance to do something, to be something more, to explore the characters, it got lazy and took the easy way out instead. Like when it never once addressed how Ezra felt about Sabine coming to rescue him, and in the process allowing the map to fall into the hands of Thrawn, essentially, so he could get back to the other galaxy and start another war. We even see her refusing to tell him anything about it, clearly implying she is worried to tell him because he might not take it so well. She is worried about how he will react to the truth, even saying to him things like, "It's complicated," but never does that come to any sort of resolution beyond them just being like, "Yep, we gotta go stop Thrawn now," at the start of the final episode, skipping over something that might add some tension between the characters. And I'm sorry, but that is terrible writing. That is just taking the lazy and easy way out. And I say that as someone who has enjoyed quite a bit of Dave Filoni's work over the years, who has defended him in the past, who even enjoyed many aspects of this very show, heavily praising the middle few episodes in my reviews. despite many arguing with me that it was nothing more than member berries, that the use of Anakin was nothing more than nostalgia bait. I vehemently argued against that and in defense of Filoni's use of him. I stood up and I said I disagree with those people. I was, for a little while there, a Disney shill in the eyes of some. However, many of Dave's decisions with the finale were bad, and I am going to say as such. I am not going to sugarcoat it because, again, I want to see Star Wars be the best it can possibly be. I want this show and the franchise on the whole to be the best it can possibly be. I offer criticism because I do believe he, Dave Filoni, is maybe the last hope for Star Wars. I do believe he is very much a huge Star Wars fan. I think that is obvious. I think it is obvious he wants to do good by the fans. I've said all of these things many, many times before. But clapping like a trained seal at everything he does will not help him improve or do anything for Star Wars going forward. I mean, when I tell stories, I love the praise. Sure, I appreciate and love the fact that some are really enjoying my stories. That is a great feeling, and that is always my goal when I tell a story. As I feel Filoni's goal is the same. He wants to entertain Star Wars fans. He wants to do right by the franchise. But it is those who offer constructive criticism, not just get angry and rant, that I pay the most attention to when I tell a story, because there's a good chance they're making a valid point that I can and will learn from. And, at least from my point of view, my reviews are not mean-spirited. I may not always be as kind as I could be. I may joke around and make fun of some things, sure, but I don't know that I've ever truly been hateful. Not as I would define the word, and not as anyone would have defined it for all of human history, until the age of the internet turned it into something that means someone that doesn't agree with absolutely everything I say. Put simply, I don't hate the Ahsoka series as much as I was disappointed by it in the end, mainly because I care and want Star Wars and Dave Filoni to succeed that damn much. It really means that much to me, to the point it almost hurts not to have loved this series in the end. It's not unlike, to use a sports analogy, because I do love my sports analogies, but I'm a Milwaukee Brewers fan, and last night, after a great season, they lost at home. After back-to-back games, they lost at home, and were already eliminated from the playoffs when a lot of us fans thought, maybe this is the year. And go figure, myself and pretty much every Brewers fan out there right now is disappointed because we cared that much. We invested a lot of time and energy, not only this year, but for many, many seasons before this, watching them and cheering for them and wanting to see them win a World Series. We want them to do the best they can possibly do. And when you go out earlier than you really should have in the playoffs after not exactly your two best games ever, it hurts a lot. You're absolutely devastated right now. And I really don't understand why more people can't understand that something very similar applies to Star Wars. Something you have invested a ton of time in, that some of us have loved our entire life. We care that damn much. Again, I'm a fan of Dave Filoni. I've been a fan of his since the Clone Wars. I've been a fan of the character of Ahsoka for roughly 15 years now. And I can't help but feel like this show, the finale of it mainly, was like getting knocked out of the playoffs early when you really thought this might be the one. You thought this might be the year. You thought this might be the show that finally wins it all. And look, I don't mean to single out this particular comment. I'm sorry if I'm coming off aggressive towards you. It's really not that bad of a comment, in all honesty. I have seen far, far worse over the years, and I've seen far worse over the last few days of me calling this show not the best ever. There has been plenty of people saying Thor hates everything about Star Wars again, even though a few episodes back, like I was talking about before, I had people calling me a shill for thinking Anakin being brought back wasn't member berries, and I was praising again those middle episodes quite heavily. I really enjoyed those middle episodes. Go back, watch my reviews. But to be honest, in my opinion, one you don't have to agree with. I'm not going to call you names or place a label on anyone who loved everything about this series or the finale. To each their own, absolutely. But to be honest with you, I do not think the show stuck the landing. And I can't help but find it a little, maybe even scary how right Anakin was back in Revenge of the Sith when he said, "If you're not with me, then you're my enemy." It really feels like the internet has made people even more tribal than ever. Like it broke their brains to the point where they can only see everything as sides to be taken. Every disagreement is nothing short of a full-scale war that needs to be won against an enemy that doesn't like Star Wars the same way I do, which is insane to me. It's insane. I don't mean this particular commenter again. My apologies. But it's insane how angry some people have gotten at me over the years because I don't love everything about Star Wars, and have the audacity to criticize it because I think it can be and should be better. Well, that's all I got for you this time. Now it's your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you think about anything and everything I had to say here. Either that, or yes, you can always ask a question for a future lightning response video. Just start your comment off with "Hey Thor" and fire away. But whatever you choose to do, leave a comment below, and like civilized people, let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.